Tev and Ty. We are on episode 9, and now it's going to be a completely new format starting from this week, in that we are going to jump straight into section 1 with Around the World. So, today we are going to be talking a little bit about what we touched on last week when we had Les Dwo. If you haven't heard that episode yet, jump back and go listen to it. That was good fun. Towards the end of that first section, we spoke a little bit about Elon Musk purchasing Twitter. Woohoo! Big news, big news. A $44 billion purchase, I believe it was, more or less. And Elon has come in hot. He has come in hot, let's be honest, yeah? So have you seen any news about this?
Man, the Twitter streets have been abuzz. I've just been seeing lots of tweets from ex-developers and staff saying, well, this is my last tweet. I was responsible for this particular running of Twitter. So say it was for adverts or sponsored tweets. I was in charge of kind of the security. There's so many people that came to the fore and said, look, this is what I was responsible for. It's been good knowing you guys, but I've just been laid off. No, he came in hot. He came in hot.
He did.
Insane.
I think he's they said it was about 50% of the staff that has been laid off since he has taken over. Now, I think it's also important to note, I don't know if everyone heard or if a lot of people know, but he came in, obviously this was big news kind of early on in the year, but he tried to pull out of the purchase, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. But he was legally bound to go through with it. Les mentioned in the previous one the dangers of a person who has such a clear business strategy or such clear objectives, that could be a dangerous thing. Yeah. So basically, I just wanted to talk a little bit about like what the news that I found interesting about since he's taken over, because a lot has happened. So obviously there were these layoffs that you said in various different departments. It was in security, it was in advertising. Again, 50% more or less of the people. He dissolved the board of directors. And
came in hot there.
First day. That was first day. And he put in what people are calling allies of his into these positions of power. People that he knows, like these high profile people.
Yeah.
He said that the reason that he did this is that since he took over, there's been like a $4 billion a day drop in revenue. So I'm not actually sure, where's all the revenue come from Twitter? Would it be advertising?
I would have thought it's from advertising, paid paid tweets, etc. But generally, I think the fact that he bought Twitter, the people that sold Twitter, like Jack Dorsey, etc., those guys knew that it was already on the decline, and they kind of swindled him with how much they got away with at the end of it. 44 mil, knowing that there were so many intricacies that needed to be dealt with at the time.
Didn't the guy who sold the majority of the shares, I mean, the guy who sold it, he's also dissolved all of his shares, hasn't he? But he said, like, I fully back Elon Musk in this purchase. He's the right person to take it forward. Or clearly not the right person to take your money forward. Yeah, where's your faith? You're chatting smoke here.
Business is business, man. So, hey guys are really just out for their own interests. You gotta respect the man. Sure. Yeah, he honestly just took it from a business point of view, got the job done.
But did you hear that some of these members were asked to return?
I did. I heard there was a court case that actually came against Twitter for firstly was the unlawful dismissing of employees without a proper notice. I don't think they gave them 60 days in total, obviously. So that was one of the repercussions for his kind of strategy.
But some people were asked to come back because some of the people that they laid off, they actually need those people to implement the new things that he wants to bring in. So it's almost like it was a bit hasty, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, guys,
like a little bit.
honestly gung-ho, and I think trying to make too much of an impact straight up when it could have been a gradual thing, kind of get in, start integrating his people, because I also read that he got some of the engineers that work at Tesla to kind of come in and either learn or already look to undertake some of the duties that the previous technicians.
Well, I also know that some of the things that he wanted to focus on was like censorship, the rules on Twitter. Like he's trying to. He believes that Twitter needs more free speech, which.
Ooh. So isn't that a bit of a slippery slope then? Because we always talk about freedom of speech and kind of the framework for it. How much leeway is considered free speech before it moves into hate speech, discrimination, that kind of thing?
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's something that would definitely be an outcome for.
Exactly. And I know a lot of like high prominent figures and big advertising agencies, I think Pfizer is one of them, have actually paused their advertising campaigns on Twitter because of the way that it's happened with the censorship rules. He spoke about unbanning Donald Trump. He hasn't done it yet, but he did speak about it. When it comes to censorship, I know he said that one of the things that he was going to do was that, imagine it like a movie rating, right? So you can choose what movie you want to watch. And he said the way he's going to do it is he's going to introduce something, so to limit the toxicity of what you see, let's call it that. He suggests that there'll be like you can pick your level of content moderation. So if you only want to see 50% of the stuff being moderated by a team who would ever check the censorship, then it would be kind of controlled what you see. If you don't want any censorship, then what you see is what you see.
Yeah.
So basically, he said his whole new goal was that he tweeted this actually, saying Twitter needs to become by far the most accurate source of information around the world. That is our mission. Essentially wanting to turn each and every individual into like a journalist, I suppose, but somebody who can like...
Yeah, so essentially you're a mobile journalist. You're on the ground in whatever community you're in, and you're operating as the live feed of information, which is strange, man. Twitter, I think a couple of years ago, Twitter was kind of the go-to source for news.
Yeah.
There was a lot more verification, and this, I guess, brings into consideration the blue tick policy. So with him, I heard him wanting to introduce paid verification, essentially. So paying $8 a month, I believe it is, something close to that, for your verification. That then opens up the question of how valid is the person, because essentially people got their verification to confirm that they are who they say they are. You, Tyler, there's one of you that is actually operating under your name, under your profile. So
and you check, it's normally like prominent people that
in
are
industries.
verified,
Exactly. So now there's that loophole of someone having the means and the funds to do so. I can just pay to be Tyler. I can save your profile picture, I can do whatever, but surely there is some level of verification.
He said that if you don't explicitly say that you're a parody account, so if you wanted to pay $8 to be Tyler, you'd have to say, like in your bio or whatever, you'd have to say like, I am a parody account of Tyler Mulvaney. But for me, like, I don't know, it seems ridiculous, man, because like if you check, I don't know, like, so I like Twitter. I do like it. I think it's one of the funniest social medias that are out there. Like you really see some funny things out there. But I think for me, like when I see the verification symbol, it really helps me. So example, like when football transfers are happening, I find Twitter can be one of the most useful places to go. When you find that Fabrizio Romano is taking some time to let us know what's popping, we can go on there and we can see, okay, who's talking about what. And when you see someone tweet like Arsenal is on the verge of signing Lionel Messi, which we have been apparently for so long, you go and you check who tweeted it, right? You go check who's this person. And normally, if you see a very verified sign, you're more likely to be like, oh, this actually could be happening. Whereas now, what now? You know what
Yeah,
I'm
everyone
saying?
has
Like
the
how?
tick. Yeah, it's. I think his viewpoint, or at least his team, and I might be wrong here, but they're seeing it from a um, almost cloud point of view. So
Yeah,
almost that the tick is basically just from a promotion point of view,
yeah,
regardless
yeah,
of my let's say qualifications or my know-how in my specific
yeah,
industry. It's just
yeah.
the fact that I have a lot of followers. I can
Yes.
engage with a lot of people. So regardless of the information I'm putting out there, whether it's factual or not, I have the means to draw in a crowd.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
think you've seen it quite often because aside from politicians, sports stars, people in tech, etc., you get influencers, and influencers get verified. So I don't know if that was maybe some of the thinking that went into his decision making, but ultimately I don't think it's a really good plan because, like we
yeah.
said, we're looking for verification. We're looking for authenticity in who we looking to get information from. Like you said,
Yeah.
for example, football transfers. There's been 500 Fabrizio Romanos, and they might just change
Yes.
one letter
Yes.
or make it a lowercase in their name, and people run with it. That's, I think, one of the problems that we saw in the previous election, like US election, with fake news. People
Yes.
generally believe anything that you put on social media, regardless of
Yeah.
whether it's Twitter, Instagram, whatever it is. So we really need to crack down on getting the factual point
Yeah.
of view, and
Yeah.
verification is what I means to do that.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So like now for me, and I worry that the lack of understanding, because we all know that little blue tick, right? We
Yeah.
all kind of know more or less what it means, and I think people that don't really know what's going on won't catch on to the news that you might be able to pay for that blue tick now, right? So it's going to lead to maybe a lot of people will know that you can buy it, but a lot of people won't know that you can buy it. And then it kind of changes the nature of what it is. I did see, like right now, kind of just before we started recording, he's putting the actual subscription thing on hold until after the midterm elections.
Okay.
Because I think what they are worried, or what they didn't, it's again, it just seems like so reactionary at the moment. It just seems like all these things, you just putting them out there and you're not even thinking about like what's going on around you. It seems a bit like hasty. And maybe it goes back to like the thing of like being forced into the purchase. Because maybe he actually realized, okay, maybe there's not so much money. He's a businessman at the end of the day. Maybe he thought, hey, there's not that much money left in this, so now I need to kind of monetize my investment as quickly as I can. And maybe that's why he's doing all these drastic things, and cloaking it under the thing of like it's about free speech. But I don't know, man. Like it just seems like, again, it just seems a bit hasty, if you ask me.
Quite
And
rash. I mean, the concept of monetizing Twitter has been around for a while. I mean, there was talk about Twitter being a subscription-based social media at one stage, where you must pay to use Twitter. So obviously
Yeah.
that generates even more revenue for you, given how many people are on the daily engaging on Twitter. So
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that could have been another option. Maybe that's what he'd eventually work towards, but I think
Yeah.
there'd be far too much outcry.
About that, yeah.
Yeah, for people,
I think
because
so too.
more often than not, people these days are using Twitter for jokes, memes, and general entertainment updates. You
That's what I
use
use
it, yeah, on the off chance with news. I think news has kind of divided the people once we started speaking about COVID.
Yeah.
Once COVID came into play, then you had, a big divide in the world. How much validity are we getting from these doctors, the pseudosciences? So that was a bit of a mess, and I don't know if there can be a point where you get accurate, fair, and unbiased, factual
Yeah.
evidence and information being given out to people. Anymore.
Especially now that anyone can just be verified.
Exactly. So
it's just going to kind of make it a little bit
Yo,
more difficult. But
moving to unprecedented dives, it's
Yeah.
really interesting just to see how it's going to play out.
I think we can keep our fingers on the pulse with that one and just kind of watch. Maybe he'll slow down a bit now that the ball is rolling. But I think let's just keep an eye on that. And let's quickly just hop in and say, we didn't say hello at the beginning, so if you are still with us, that must mean that you kind of like what's going on over here. So please feel free to do all the things. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. We're working hard at this thing, man. It takes some time on our part, I'm not going to lie, but it's good fun. It's good fun. Yeah. But yeah, all the support. Our subscribers are slowly growing, slowly creeping up. It's pretty dope.
I'm seeing those numbers.
Slowly, it's good fun. But yeah, please do that. And before we wrap up the Around the World section, I wanted to just talk a little bit about what's happening in Iran at the moment. So that is quite an interesting story of what's going on. So we know that Iran is a Middle Eastern country where there has been protests that have been going on for about 55 odd days by the time we release this episode. And basically what sparked it was Mahsa Amini, who was, if I'm not mistaken, she was detained after she was walking. I think she wasn't wearing a hijab, if I'm correct.
Yeah, she wasn't wearing it correctly, and she had.
Yeah, it wasn't and then they detained her, right?
Yeah.
And she then died in custody, which obviously the vast majority of people strongly believe that that happened because of police misconduct, abuse, whatever you want to call it, in a country where there's been talks within the country, not from the outside, about how limiting it is, especially to women. And, there's actually no need to touch on anything other than the fact that women are in that country. The people in that country feel as if they are not given the space in which to completely express themselves. You know what I mean? And it's not even the case of like going against any religion. For them, I don't believe. It's kind of like, I think what sparked outcry in this is that it wasn't that she was doing anything overtly haram or like anti-Muslim, but like it was just like slightly incorrect, and it ended up with somebody dying. And we're so used to seeing students lead the forefront in change, and it's happening right now. Obviously, the Iranian authorities have spoken out, and they said it's the US that is driving these protests. It always becomes politically motivated. But I just wanted to ask you, like, what are your thoughts and opinions on like what's happening there? Students demonstrating, standing up for what they believe in after this tragic this tragic event.
Yeah, I give credit to people standing up for what they believe and fighting for their cause. Like we've said now, we've seen, I think it was 300 or so people that actually got killed during these protests over the past 50 or so days by security forces, which is unimaginable. I don't know how something that's based from such a good place. So it's really interesting to see the repercussions for something that I think the general society would consider as an important human rights issue. I'm not going to speak on understanding Muslim culture and that kind of environment, because clearly I am not someone that has enough information to talk about that. So I can objectively kind of see how at times it could be portrayed as Western world trying to influence their culture, because you'd need someone that has the lived experience, understands the livelihoods of their people, as well as the general customs and intricacies that go with this kind of their lifestyle and what happened in their respective nations. Speaking on this, so I think, given that it was their people coming out, taking to the streets, that should have been seen as the breakout moment to have a bit of introspection as a nation. Say, okay, guys, look, this is where we're at. This is kind of what your demands are. Where is the middle ground that we can find or work towards? What are the steps that we can start taking in order to make you feel seen, heard, as well as still keeping our traditions alive? I don't know if there is a middle ground, but there needs to be a platform for discussion about that. I think that's the difference between authoritarian rule versus democracy. So it can be quite a blurred line in some instances. But I think there needs to be a platform for discussion.
Well, like you said, the fact that, or we both said it now, the fact that it was, it's being displayed within the country. It's not being from the outside. Again, the supreme leader, I think is what the term that is it Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Sorry if I said that wrong, but like the fact that he's trying to point and say like, oh no, this is influence from the West, the US is influencing us. It's not really true, because it's actually the people within that country that are standing up against us. I mean, there was a 16-year-old there who was protesting, and she actually said, they can kill us, they can arrest us, but it is the start of their end. Maybe today, maybe next week or next month, but our revolt is irreversible. So, I think the fact that it's like internal and happening within the borders of the country says a lot. At the same time, Biden came out and he was like, something along the lines of, don't worry, Iran will be freed, we will free Iran. I'm kind of like, slow your roll a little bit. It's kind of, I feel as if that's stepping out of line a bit. Like, it's got nothing to do with you.
Exactly.
Just slow down. So I would say, not that Joe, not that he cares anything about what I'm saying, but, I think it's those kinds of things when they come out and say that make, they kind of give ammunition to people that are like, look, the US is interfering, when publicly someone like the president, senile as he may be, comes out and says things like that. It's kind of like, don't get involved in things that, to be honest, don't really concern you, because he's blaming it on you, and you speaking out is actually adding fuel to the fire, despite what you may believe,
Yeah. So.
And I think, sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's really, I think matters like this, it's really interesting to see how much, I think, so, and I may be speaking on the part of Western world, I don't know, where they look to try be helpful, but don't understand the constraints that come with that, or kind of the ballpark, the framework that they can work in to provide aid. What does aid look like? Are you saying you need to bring resources into the country? Are you going to provide a means of communication between the government and its and its residents? What is your level of involvement in your cause to help countries like this? And I think that's something that a lot of nations don't necessarily understand. And that needs to come from discussion, from enlightenment from the people. So the residents are the voice of the country. They know exactly what's going on, what are the
what
means.
they are willing to accept, what they're not willing to accept.
Because you can only help people, firstly, that want help, that need help, and that are able to define the kind of help that they need.
It's like there's no cultural context or no understanding of the, like, kind of read the room situation. Like Biden, he's blaming you for something, so just don't say it. Just shut up, bro.
Yeah,
Just
maybe
don't
just
say it.
pause,
Just maybe just, if you're gonna say
listen.
anything, just say me keeping quiet is me proving that I have nothing to do with it. That's all you need to say. But yeah, I thought it was good news to wrap this section up, because I feel as if, again, students are often the people that are leading the way forward. And it's good to see in not just in Iran, but all over the world, that people are starting to work towards, this more sense of like equality, more sense of like, I wouldn't say democracy, but speaking up. And I just thought that would be a nice way to wrap up the first section. Just with some happy
reminiscent
news.
of Soweto uprising. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of it started with our students taking a stand against, the discrimination that was placed upon us during the apartheid times.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
knowing that students or people that generally aren't always taken as the first point of call in society.
Yeah.
You always look
100%.
to government, presidents, adults in general.
Yeah.
But it's good to see that students are the voice of a nation as well. And through their work, through their involvement, these protests, again, like what you'd see with Fees Must Fall, etc., you see a big kind of wave that just gets bigger and bigger and gets carried through the voices of the youth. The youth have the means to, encourage and get backing for their ideals and their values. And it's good to see that people 100%. Are speaking up for things that aren't
believe it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it. Education, man, changing the world one teacher at a time. I'm just joking. But yeah, that was a really nice, meaty, kind of political around the world section. If you came in and you only planning on listening to the first section, then thanks for joining us. I would suggest that you stay and listen to the next section, because we've got a lot more going on. But if you are leaving, no worries. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and we'll catch up with you if you're staying with us in section 2.
So that's how we wrapped up section 1, and we'll move straight into section 2, which we call Getting Athletic. So as a number of you may have seen, we have seen another incident of celebrities misusing their platforms. This comes in the form of Kyrie Irving and his promotion of a movie with lots of anti-Semitic themes. This was in late October, and rightly so, he was punished and had to face the repercussions. He saw a 5-match ban with the Nets. We also saw that Nike suspended his sponsorship deal. And then himself and his team, the Brooklyn Nets, had to make a donation to the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, at the price of $500,000 in support of these anti-hate causes. So where to begin?
Which, by the way, that Anti-Defamation League actually rejected Kyrie's donation, because they said that they felt as if he's not actually showing any remorse, any true remorse towards it, which I thought is quite notable as well.
And you gotta give them credit for standing by their values. I mean, for donations as sizable as that, to say no, I really give them credit for sticking to their guns. The question I'd really want to ask you is, what are your thoughts on this? I know we've discussed it with Adam Levine previously, but what are your thoughts on this?
So I think, we as we discussed in the previous episode, I believe it was episode 3, the role of celebrities and the kind of influence that these people in prominent positions, the responsibility essentially that they have as role models. So I think, to be honest, Shaquille O'Neal and Charles Barkley really summed it up the best in their show, the TNT, the NBA TNT show that they do, where Shaquille O'Neal actually said,
when you're as great at basketball as he is, people listen to you. It hurts me that we have to sit up here and talk about stuff that divides us. We have to sit up here and answer for what this idiot has done. I stand for equality of all people. That's what Shaquille O'Neal said. And I think that's like the perfect summary, right? He very clearly has stated, and surely someone like Kyrie Irving needs to understand that, because I think he tweeted about this documentary, if I'm not mistaken, or something like that. And immediately, you have 4 million followers, I think he has. Immediately, you know that what you're saying is being shared with that amount of people. And I really, really firmly believe that it is the responsibility of people that are in this position to understand the gravity of what they're saying and the amount of people that are listening to them. I think the fact that he didn't apologize for as long as he did, I think that is unforgivable, really. Well, not unforgivable, but it's absolute poor behavior. He's come up in several cases where, he's always at the center of these controversial things. So he didn't vaccinate, which is fine. His prerogative and his choice. I'm just saying how he's come up with the media. He came up with flat earthers.
I did hear about that too.
Yeah. And then now this. And it's kind of like, almost like fool me once kind of thing. Like, at some point, surely someone has to sit with him and be like, mate, like, you're a prominent person. Like, what's going on? And to do this, I just think, if you ask me what my opinion is, I think it's absolutely disgusting to do this. And in his apology, he said that he hadn't done the proper research on the docuseries that it was. So, like, then why are you gassing it? Like, then what are you
how
doing?
Can you promote something that you don't believe in?
And you haven't even done the research. You don't even know what you're talking about. So I'm just you are showing how ignorant you are. And it's absolutely horrible, because it's the same thing like with Adam Levine when we spoke about it. I honestly feel like I listen to Maroon 5's music differently. I almost don't like the fact how much I like their music, and maybe that's my fault. Maybe I need to separate the art from the artist, right? I think Kyrie Irving is one of the most entertaining basketball players there is at the moment to watch.
Yeah.
In fact, I have quite a cool Brooklyn Nets street graffiti style vest that I have. It has Irving at the back, which I won't wear. I'm actually ashamed of myself for buying it. And I don't actually think you can always separate the art from the artist. And I think that if we're going to have the attitude of athletes must just be athletes, then they must just behave like athletes. They just mustn't talk about things that's like this. Just don't do it. And I actually think that his punishment is not enough, if you ask me. That's just me.
Come on. Someone has to hold you to account. Someone has to... Who, in my mind, I'm wondering who are his accountability partners, be it his romantic partner, be it his friends, his family, the team, the manager, everyone. When you have conversations like this, who are the people that are receptive to it, firstly, and then secondly, those that aren't calling you out for it? You need friends that are blatantly honest, gonna pull you aside and say, no, that's wrong, and this is why it's wrong. And if you still don't understand that, then you need to be the person that goes up and reads on it. And it's not to say that there is very limited information or resources out there to learn about what hate speech is. We're living in the digital age where everything is literally a scroll away or a click away. And it's honestly ridiculous how people can play the ignorance card all too often. I mean, I think recently, this week as well, we saw, I think his name is the True Geordie, that came out with what he calls a tongue-in-cheek comment about Islamophobia. And he said, oh, guys, you know what, sorry, man, I didn't really mean it like that. It was a real tongue-in-cheek, it was a joke, and I didn't mean anything behind that. But these have real consequences. People follow you and notably go on what you say. So if you're promoting, whether that be passively or actively, this kind of hate speech, it's going to grow. It's going to fuel people into action. It's going to fuel people's mindsets, and it's ridiculous that people aren't held to account. I agree with you. There needs to be strict punishment. There needs to be education. There needs to be a multitude of things that need to happen for us to eventually get to a point where I can objectively see what is black and white. There can't be that much gray area in instances like this. And it's honestly so poor to see. We saw it with Kanye not too long ago. Again, with anti-Semitic tweets and, comments that ultimately lost him tons of his sponsorships, and rightly so. We're finally getting people to be accountable for their actions, and I think that's one valuable thing to see.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, you have to come down hard on these cases, because you have to have people thinking twice about what they're doing. So we spoke a little bit about Ivan Toney and the racial abuse that he received, coming from, that was obviously from I don't want to say civilian, but from like a fan going towards the celebrity. This is now the role is reversed, right? Yeah. And to be honest, I kind of think the celebrity has slightly more responsibility to understand their voice and the 100%. Strength and the power of their voice. Not that it's excusable in any case, don't get me wrong, but the guy who's tweeting towards Ivan Toney has 32 followers. The guy, Ivan Toney, has millions of followers. Kyrie Irving has millions of followers, right? And they have to come down hard on these cases, because it will make these athletes and these people, these influential people, think twice before they do anything. You know, like, I know there's this whole thing now against cancel culture and, you know, like how easy it is to do this. But I mean, at the end of the day, it is also like about accountability. And I remember with the Ivan Toney thing, you and I discussed like maybe one of the things could be educating people on, you know, what it means, you know, like especially coming from somebody who, the perspective of being racially abused, so that there can be like more of a perspective understanding. I do understand that the part of what has to happen with this is that the Nets have given him a minimum of a 5-game suspension, and then until he meets certain criteria. So basically he's meeting with quite prominent Jewish leaders. He has to be educated on anti-Semitism as a whole. There's a bunch of criteria he has to meet before he can come back to the game. And I think that is a good response. I do think at the same time, the only people who I believe acted quick enough was Nike. You know, they very much socially aware. I mean, you see that with what was the footballer's name? Kapinski.
Colin Kaepernick.
Yeah, Kaepernick. Yeah. So they're very socially aware of that kind of thing. The one with Oscar Pistorius, where their advertising campaign was "I am the bullet in the chamber," and like how, like, I mean, that was quite hectic. But they're the only people that responded quick enough. Adam Silver, the NBA director or the CEO of the NBA, he was very slow to respond. It took them a few days, and I kind of feel like this umming and ahhing about like, oh, what are we going to do? How are we going to punish them? Shows that there's a lack of policy and procedure that needs to exist about this kind of thing. And I'm quite happy to see the punishment that he's receiving, and I am going to follow it closely because, like I said, I just think it's inexcusable, man. It's wrong. It's like, understand your power and use it. You know, Uncle Ben told you, with great power comes great responsibility. Why are you not listening to Uncle Ben, man?
Hey, a simple example. And I mean, I think you gave an example of just one of the ways in which education plays such a big part. Kind of awareness seminars, talks, chats. You mentioned at your school where you get a lecture or a platform where someone in the know comes and educates those that don't know. Look, this is, as an example, I can say, this is what it means to live in Thailand. These are the cultures, and this is where kind of the difference is between our culture versus Western culture, and these are the things to be noted. From something as simple as that, there's been so much lessons learned. There's been an awareness created. So I don't know if that's something that the NBA and generally any sports team or any establishment that is centered around influential people need to do, where you kind of do a season-long, once a week lesson. I physically go into a class. I mean, so many sports teams have their general meetings, you have locker room meetings, whatever it is, but you have a period of time where you sit down, you get educated, and you listen and you learn. And by the end of that season, or whatever the duration is of this course, you come out of that and you need to then give kind of like a testimony as to why and what you've learned. I think that's just one of the measures. But yeah, accountability is something that honestly needs to be cracked down a lot harder. And for the criteria that he has to kind of adhere to, I hope that it's not just to save face and is obligatory. So to go to these prominent Jewish leaders, learn from them or listen, I hope it's not just a means to please the media. You know, I hope that there's actual learning that happens in these interactions. So we'll be keeping a close eye to that and let you know kind of some of the outcomes that we see from this instance. Then onto other sporting news. How's it Arsenal song go? They done it again. They've done it again. The Proteas. Man, someone was cooking biscuits or something, dry bread, didn't give in any water yet again. The boys have choked. As is customary, I must credit them and their consistency with choking on the big the big stage. I don't know if all of you have seen, but in the past week, the Proteas faced the Netherlands in the T20 World Cup. It's been going on. It's the Cricket World Cup. And the boys came up short once again. They weren't given a very big task.
Nope.
Essentially, the Dutch were the first out to bat, and they had set a target of 158, I believe it was. So all South Africa had to do was to get 159 runs in the T20 format. That seems fairly straightforward. But once again, for one reason or another, the boys came up short. This is just a ridiculous running theme now. I don't know why it is, but I know you've done a bit of deep diving. You came across a few instances when we have come up short at tournaments like this.
So there's a book that has been written that is called The Art of Choking. Or The Art of Losing. Excuse me. Sorry, my bad. The Art of Losing, which I'm not actually sure when it was released, but if I look at the cover of this book, it's got Sean Pollock on the cover. It's got Graham Smith in quite an old looking kit as well. So I don't believe it's a new book. I believe it's a fairly old book that was written by Luke Alfred, I think his name is. So clearly this is a thing. And so I wanted to figure out, okay, so what keeps, not the psychology of it, but when else have we choked? So in the most infamous one is that in 1992, we played against England in the semi-final. The Proteas needed 22 runs from 13 balls. And then it was like it showered, like it was a quick rain shower. And when the game resumed, we needed 22 runs from one delivery. So that's clearly not fair, right? That was before the Duckworth-Lewis. Am I saying it correctly?
Yeah, Duckworth-Lewis method.
Before the Duckworth-Lewis method was introduced, which for those people that don't know, that's basically if rain interrupts a match, it's like a mathematical equation that they use to work out based on run rates and other factors, what the people what's a more attainable target, right?
Yeah.
Because 22 runs from 13 balls is different from 22 runs from one ball, right? So that was quite an infamous one where we lost, right? Okay, sure. Then what can we do, right?
True.
Then, 7 years later, 1999, we needed one run from 4 balls. And any cricket listeners or people that understand, it's not the most difficult achievement to get.
Literally
that,
a single, and that's it. You won the
single.
game.
That's all. Yeah. And they flopped. And we lost, so we didn't advance. Okay. Then in 2003, Mark Boucher, who's now our coach, he thought that he had scored the runs that they needed. He celebrated prematurely, and they had actually miscalculated it, and then we were 1 run short, and then rain stopped play, so we didn't advance again. So this running theme that I'm seeing is just like, okay, the first one is not really their fault.
Hardest. What are you going to do?
Yeah, it's like hardest. But now it's like, we just know. And let's be honest, man, like, again, I mean, not again, but no disrespect to the Netherlands. Like, it's really great for them to have beaten us, but come on, man. When I used to play Cricket 07, Netherlands was one where I used to feel like hitting some sixes on the game. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not like, it's not like we were playing these guys that were like, this insanely crazy talented team, and we weren't even chasing a very high target. It just feels like, here we go again, same old Proteas. And
same old story.
Yeah,
and that's something that I battle to understand. I mean, if you look at the Proteas, you look at these individual players where on a yearly basis they are performing at the peak levels. We're talking IPL here. You're playing with and against the stars of the game. You in these monstrous squads, and you performing, whether it be with the ball, whether it be with the bat, whether it be in field, we're consistently performing really well. So why is it that when you bring this group of great players together, there is no end result? Why? I honestly,
what's going on?
It baffles me, man. You can't perform at a peak level continuously, and then when I give you the greatest stage along with other great players, yeah, I just don't understand it. I hope there's some turnaround, but yeah, credit to you guys, Netherlands. Well done.
Well up.
Enjoy it, savor it. You guys have truly deserved this. And yeah, we'll just, I guess, wait for the next World Cup tournament.
Yeah, we'll eat that L. We deserve it.
Just be disappointed once again by the Proteas. So on that really sour note, we're going to wrap up section 2. So if you're dipping out now, I just want to say thanks. Like, subscribe, comment. Don't forget us on every one of our channels: Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and also our website.
Yes,
so that's we'll put a bit in that, and we will move into section 3.
And here we go with section 3 of the podcast that we like to call What's Good in Your Hood. So, Tev and I, as those people that are listening know by now, that we are both living overseas. But this is something that I think we can talk about with everyone. Doesn't matter where you live. Yeah. And we wanted to talk a little bit about getting yourself into the kitchen and cooking up some meals for yourself. Being a home cook. That's what
man, for those of you that don't know, Tyler is ace. He's got some Gordon Ramsay back in SA. He'd invite us around for some lovely dishes that he'd make. And he even did like a pizza night, if I'm not mistaken. They were great, man. The guy's got the things. He knows how to make the pots do the things. Let's
Tevin is gassing me up here too much. But I do enjoy cooking. I do enjoy cooking. And I thought what could be quite a nice thing to talk about is building confidence in the kitchen, right? And I think that's quite a cool thing, because I can honestly tell you that a few years ago, I had no confidence in the kitchen. And I was thinking to myself, I was cooking the other night. I was thinking to myself, like, how did this happen? Like, how did I actually become decent in the kitchen? Yeah. So I did a little bit of research, and I found quite a cool article that I think offers some guidelines to cooking, like just being a home cook, right? But before we get started, I want to ask you, Tev, how often do you cook, and are you happy with your standard of cooking?
So my experience cooking, it's come away. For the past, let's call it a year, where I've started cooking a lot more often. So once I met Lisa, I started getting a bit more involved in the kitchen, because she really cooks really cool dishes that were so different to the kind of food that my mom would cook back home. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Let me also try my hand at this. And slowly but surely, we started to get a bit more adventurous with dishes. So starting from the elite toast, egg on toast, 2 minute noodles, garnished with a lot of parsley there, just to finish it off. The real delicacy that is a peanut butter with a mix of jam. So we've come a long way from that to doing lasagnas. So lasagna is something that I enjoy making. Pasta dishes generally.
Okay.
Have been
Okay.
my go-to. I wasn't always confident. I kind of let my mom do her thing in the kitchen. She's
Yeah,
a really
yeah.
good cook. She loves cooking, and similarly with Lisa. So I've started to get a bit more involved.
Okay.
But it's been good.
Okay.
I've enjoyed it.
Well, that's good. That's good. That's great. But let me ask you this: when you're cooking, do you, or as a home chef, do you have any goals that you've set for yourself? Like perhaps a specific meal that you'd like to know how to cook off the bat, or is your goal simply I need to feed? Like I need to eat and I need to feed someone. So, what's the extent of your goals when it comes to cooking?
So, with generally being like a perfectionist and being quite hard on myself, I always want to try and do a dish, whatever dish it is, as best as possible. And
Okay.
my general area that I fall short is timing. So, having cooked, let's say it's a pasta, I'm doing the pasta in one style, I'm doing the sauce in another, and I'm doing, let's say, the protein. Doing the timings there where I don't have the pasta go cold or this be cold by the time it's all ready to come together. That's
Yeah,
one aspect
yeah.
that I've really
Okay.
battled with. So timings is one. For dishes, I try to just make it taste good. So let's forego the appearance for now. So let's just start
Okay.
off with it tasting
Okay.
okay. Edible. Let's start with edible. And then we'll work our way up from that to then eventually getting to a nicely presented dish. But for now,
Okay.
I'm on the hopes of getting
Timing.
an edible dish and timing, because timing I
Okay.
really struggle with at the moment. How about
Okay.
you?
So timing, I get that. I get what you're talking about. My timing has gotten quite good. So basically, this is the first piece of advice that they give is to set yourself some goals in the kitchen. Like with anything in life, having goals helps us grow, right? So as a chef, if you have some goals for yourself, then it helps you grow. It could be as simple as I want to be able to cook this thing without having to look at a recipe. It can be something like I want to improve my skills with a knife. It
Yes.
can be, yeah, so you set those kind of goals for yourself, right? So for me, I would say that we cook, not on purpose, but we mainly cook vegetarian food here at home. And I actually find that since we've been eating a lot more vegetables or vegetarian meals, I've actually found my creativity has significantly improved because as soon as you remove this thing of like one starch, one protein, one vegetable, as soon as that element, okay, you can't really cook like that when you're cooking vegetarian, you have to start becoming creative, right? So I think for me, I would say my goal at the moment is to every week I try and cook something different, like something completely different than the week before. We have a few staples that we like to cook. That's not every week we eat the same, but we have like, let's say 10 things that over 2 weeks we'll cook. We like that. That's how we kind of do it. We do our shopping once a week, which I find helps a lot. And yeah, I think that would be my goals every week is to do something new in the kitchen. Now, my next question is this.
Yeah.
Do you use recipes, and to what extent do you use recipes?
Oh, and I think this is where Lisa will criticize me. I'm very finicky with a recipe. Like, especially if it's something that I haven't made before, I'm gonna go step by step. And if it says cook this for 8 minutes and then let it simmer for another 3 minutes. I'm not just gonna leave it cooking for 12 minutes. I'm gonna follow it step by step. It must be 8 minutes. I'll set a timer for 8 minutes. Okay, cool.
Okay.
8 minutes is done. Cool. Turn it down. Simmer for 3 minutes. Okay. So I'm quite finicky about working very progressively through the recipe in the hopes that it ends up as close to what it should look like and should taste like. So, yeah, quite finicky. I know once you get to your level, then it's...
you stop saying that. No,
you can...
I use... No. In general, no. So this is actually also what they suggest in this article, is that you basically, what you do is you find your flavors and your ingredients that you enjoy cooking with, and then you find recipes that match it, and then you follow those recipes, right? To what extent is up to you, but they do suggest using recipes, and I agree. I use recipes quite a lot as well, obviously. Especially for things I haven't cooked before, and then maybe the third time I cook it, I try not to use the recipe. And it's the same thing, also part of the goals thing. Like for me, one of my goals is also to I don't like to buy sauce. So if I'm making a Napoletana pasta, for example, I don't like to buy a tomato base. I cut the tomatoes. I like everything from scratch. I find it a lot cleaner. So that's the second piece of advice: is your recipe. Find your ingredients and follow your recipes.
And on that,
now,
where do you find your recipes? So it's also, this is a two-part question. Where do you find your recipes? And secondly, you speak about making mainly vegetarian dishes.
Yeah.
Now, I've finally moved beyond vegetarian being, okay, I'm either left with the options of it's a salad, or it's a broccoli bake, or it's a spinach and pesto pasta kind of thing. So what are some of the dishes you make and that you found, and then where do you find the recipes for these dishes?
So we find a lot of our recipes on Pinterest and on Instagram. Actually, for pasta, if you like pasta, there's a lady on Instagram called Pasta Queen. Really cool recipes. I've made a lot of the pastas that she makes, and they are absolutely delicious. I made carbonara the other day, like a zucchini carbonara that was on point. And I'm talking real carbonara with raw egg, not with a cream sauce Alfredo style. It was really good. When it comes to kind of vegetarian dishes and how we cook, so we don't use meat replacements, because I kind of feel like, why? I'm not actually a vegetarian, so if I actually want it, then I'll eat meat, right? That's kind of my feeling on it anyway. So we steer clear of those. I often make like ratatouille, like that kind of thing, like nice stir fries. We have good stir fry ingredients here in Thailand, like nice noodle based dishes. Most of our pastas would just be like arrabbiata or napoletana or something like that. So yeah, that's kind of like the stuff that we make with I would say Pinterest and we made quite a nice curried chickpea wrap the other day. That was pretty good. That was a nice one. But now this might be a challenge for you and I. I'll tell you my part after you tell me yours. But the next piece of advice they have is the equipment in the kitchen that you need, every home cook needs. So my question, and it's not even that complicated. My question is to you: what is your equipment that you have that you know you can't do without? And let's see if you mention like your daily tools. Like, what do you have that you use?
Okay, so having moved across countries, we obviously didn't start out with what we had back home. So I learned the hard way about having a can opener. I made
there with a knife
one day and there I was on YouTube and Google trying to find out the ways in which to open a tin can without a can opener. And funnily enough, you can either use a spoon on the inner rim and you kind of work at it until a part of it gives in, and then you sort of work your way around it. Otherwise, you can go quite forcefully with a knife or a A fork they've suggested. I found that a pair of pliers do quite a good job. So tools I've come to learn, can opener, number one. Number two is does this has to be cutlery, or it can be like crockery as well.
No, whatever it is that you
So
use, yeah.
spatula for sure, a sharp knife,
Okay.
and
Okay.
yeah, you do see the difference between knives. Previously, I was like, knives are knives and knives, man. Just use it. If I'm gonna use that bread knife, if it's the only thing I have, I'll make do.
I can cut.
But I see speciality for knives. It makes a lot of sense. So a sharp knife, spatula, Pyrex dishes for the oven. I can do, I've mentioned doing lasagnas quite often, so that's kind of the go-to.
Important, yeah.
What else do I need? Pan, pot.
Yeah.
Don't have a mixer yet, so just using the old
Yeah.
wrist action there.
Yeah, but that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, I'd say those are the
Okay.
basics for now.
Okay.
Let's give you your
So,
list.
my list of what I cannot do without, first and foremost, are knives. 100%. You have to have good knives, at least decent knives. They don't have to be super expensive. Sharp, good knives. Because think about tomatoes. When you cut a tomato with a blunt knife, you...
The Berry Mark ads, exactly.
Yes. So you need good knives. In fact, I recently went and purchased not exceptionally expensive, but kind of a mid-range set of knives that I'm loving. It makes
Shogun.
cooking such a pleasure. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That I actually keep sharp. That I use a sharpening rod. And just by the way, a sharpening rod cannot sharpen a blunt knife. It can only keep a sharp knife sharp. So if your knife is blunt, it can't change it. But if your knife is at least a little bit sharp, it can keep it sharp. So you need to stay on top of it and keep your stuff together. Yeah, exactly. The other thing they mention is a cutting board, which is quite important.
Yes.
Because if you're cutting on a plate and it's like got ridges, it kind of compromises the way you cut. So
And do you
chop on
use
a good
separate
board.
chopping boards per ingredient? So do you have a meat cutting board, a vegetable cutting board? Because I hear you shouldn't, ideally,
because of
I know-
bacteria.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I do have one for meat. When I do cook meat, I use a different one. I prefer wood to. I want a glass one, to be honest, but at the moment I'm using a wooden one. Wood can be, if it's not treated properly, it can also be bad for you because it can absorb a lot.
Yeah.
And when I'm cutting things like onions or garlic, things that have strong flavors, wipe the board in between. That's quite important, you know. But then the next thing they suggest is just your general stock of the milk. Spices, garlic powder, onion powder, salt, pepper, all important. Yeah,
Missing a
all
lot of those
important.
spices, man. And there's some spices
Yeah.
that you just get so used to having in your house, like back home, that you don't necessarily find once you've moved. I don't know. Well, you're kind of in the hub of the spice world. So you
Yeah, to
shouldn't
an extent,
find
yeah.
too much trouble looking for spices that you would have encountered back home.
Yeah.
A bit more of a workaround I found.
Okay.
But
Okay, that makes sense. That makes there are some spices we can't find here, but also I think that's also quite an important thing is that if you are living abroad, you need to we can't find sweet basil, for example. So I've had to kind of remove that from my cooking, like what we cook. So like pesto and stuff is very difficult for us to get. So you also kind of have to match where you live. I'd imagine in England you can find a lot of Indian spices. So, you know, like that might be a way to go, you know, just as a suggestion. And then the last thing, you need the last piece of advice. So the next one, that one that we just did was having the right equipment, making your life easy. And the last piece of advice, make your kitchen an enjoyable place to be. Right? That's what they say. Make it enjoyable. So if you like music, like I know you do, play yourself some nice music when you're in there. Or if you want to listen to a podcast, hint, hint, nudge, nudge, the big five is waiting. But if you want to listen to a podcast while you're cooking, do that. But basically what they're saying is, so for us, I don't do the cooking alone. Katya also does cooking. We kind of share it 50-50.
Yeah.
but we don't. The one person's not sitting watching TV. Like we're sitting and we're talking. It's like it's quite a big part of our day where we catch up on like what's going on with the other person, and it's not like it's a chore or a duty for the other person to do, and like it's just a nice place to be, and I think that helps a lot. You know, like just having a positive attitude towards the space.
You use that space for more than just it being somewhere to cook. It's a place for interaction, and this is actually quite reminiscent of what you detailed when we spoke about. I know the theme was around getting closer with friends abroad, but some of those actions and suggestions play a vital part here, like the communication part, using small instances for communication. Doesn't have to be a 2-hour spiel when your partner comes home and then you run through your day. So you literally can do it kind of in motion whilst things are happening. You can still have that kind of conversation. And this also brings me to the other point that we made is, would you then still look at trying to cook with your mates whilst you're catching up? So given how much interest you have in the kitchen, and it's kind of a place where you get to express yourself, how often are you now going to look at doing the Skype cook or the Skype cooking class, whatever it is, with mates?
I think for me, the problem at the moment is that there's a mental block towards it, because I can't imagine what it would look like calling you up and being like, yo, like, let's cook this thing together. You know, like I actually, it's probably one of those things that once you do it, it's going to be like really fun and whatever, but I can't imagine what it would look like. Maybe it is something that we need to try, try and, I think it might not be a bad idea actually for us to look into doing something like that, and kind of see what the experience is like. And if it's not fun, it's not fun, and then we don't do it again.
There you go. Then we have information to give all these lovely listeners out there.
Yeah.
And quickly talk me through your kind of process in the kitchen. Are you everything is prepped before you start, before you even turn the oven on? Are you a guy that kind of does it along the way, where as I'm chopping this, that's on the pot, something else in the oven, I'm quickly washing the dishes while that's all going on? Is it one like successive process, or is it kind of a step-by-step section?
Yeah, that's actually a good question. I do at least half of the prep before I start, because I find you need to be in control of what's going on around you while you're cooking. So I do half of the prep, and then the rest I do while I'm on the move. And I will say this, and they don't put it here in this article.
Yeah.
Keep your kitchen clean while you are cooking, because if your kitchen is disorganized, your mind is disorganized, and your food will be disorganized. Keep it clean. Keep wiping the surface. Don't have a huge thing of dishes behind you where you can't find anything and you're frantic. I promise you, your food will taste frantic. If you're calm and you're in control of your space, everything will work out, because you're not burning things. You're not. Just take that extra time to make sure you're ready before you start. And while you're going, just a quick wipe in your hand. It's not a big deal. Just keep it clean. And before we go, you tell me, what's your process?
Another part of my goals and objectives is to be a less frantic cook. So I'd start with, I'd like to prep. So I'd prep everything. I'd cut all the veggies and everything is done. And this is another area where Lisa's like, you can do multiple things at once. You can be this stagnant in kind of every process of cooking. So whilst this is on, you can still, grab the dish. You can wash that pan that you've just used. You can also prep the veg. You can have that steam. So kind of getting comfortable with things happening successively.
Successively. That's it.
So
I think if you understand, I think that's an important thing, is understand what you're cooking before you start cooking it. Understanding the process that's going to go into it, I think, is a very important part. But maybe what you and I can do is either do the Skype cook thing. If we don't end up doing that, maybe we need to record ourselves, do a time lapse of ourselves cooking something, I think that could be quite cool. I know we keep promising things like this, but I think let's do something like that. Yeah, that could be quite cool.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and that's something we can do for you guys. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah, like
sure.
you said, we've got a few things that we've got lined up with the social part of things, but that's a great one. So we'll give that a go, and then come back to you guys with notes, and you guys can see our creations. I think
and criticize or compliment, whatever you want.
Here we go. I know there's a young chef in Ireland that listens to the podcast, so you can give us a rating out of 10 there. So
yes, sir.
I know exactly who you are. But yeah, I look forward to that. That'll be a really fun thing for us to do. And
just quickly before we wrap up, I think, Tev, I'm asking you this now. I think this week, upcoming one is going to be the World Cup special. I see the squads are starting to come out, so look forward to that.
Yeah, it's looking good. I won't give any spoilers out now, but yeah, the Brazil squad has been announced, and it was really cool to see some of the announcement videos.
Yeah.
Things like that. So we'll get into all of that in the next episode. So now we can say thank you for sitting with us on this episode. It was fun, man. We really enjoyed that. Let us know your thoughts. Just a reminder to like, subscribe, comment. We are on TikTok, Instagram, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, as well as our website. That's where we're going to leave for now, and we shall catch you lovely people soon. Adios.
See you later, guys. Bye-bye.
Cheers.